So, leçon B is much easier, well, I'm not going to say easier, but it's at least a little shorter than lesson A or C. In lesson C, we actually begin to introduce some new stuff. So this is your last time to make sure that you are really, really comfortable with all of the stuff that we have learned in French 1 before we start moving on to the new stuff in French 2. So, we talked in the last lesson about the regular verbs, the regular ER verbs, IR verbs, and RE verbs, and how those followed a certain pattern and so forth and so on. Now, we're going to start getting back into our irregular verbs. Aller and être are two irregular verbs. If you'll notice, even though this ends in ER, this is not E-E-S-E, O-N-S-E-Z-E-N-T. Kind of is over here, but that's about it. And if you notice here, this is an RE verb, but it does not end in SS nothing, O-N-S-E-Z-E-N-T. It's totally different, right? So, that is an irregular verb. Now, aller means to go. Aller, 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 right? And this one actually does have a little song to it. Je vais, tu vas, il, elle, on va. Nous allons, vous allez. Il, elle vont. That means to go. Alright? So there is kind of a little trick for that one. Now for être, if you know of one, email me, because I don't. But there is a trick to être. If you look at the verb itself, the infinitive itself, it kind of gives you a few hints. For one, there's a lot of E's. And if you'll notice, there's E's in almost every one of these. But you know what else is in every one of these? Let's look at our alphabet. If I went L-M-N-O-P-Q-R-S-T, and I look between that R and that S, that R and the T, I get an S. So if I look between that R and that T, I can think, oh yeah, there's an S. And every single one of these has an S. So that can help you remember that one. Now, être means to be, and aller means to go. So, je vais means I go. It also means I am going. The am is included in the verb. Okay? Tu vas, you go, you are going. Il, elle, va, he, she, one goes, he, she, one is going. Nous allons, we go, we are going. Vous allez, you or y'all go or are going. Ils, elles vont, they go, they are going. Now, être means to be. Je suis means I am, or I am being. Tu es, you are being. Il, elle, est. He, she, one is, he, she, one is being. Nous sommes, we are being. Vous êtes, you or y'all are being. And then ils, elles sont, they are or they are being. So, these are the irregular conjugated verbs that you're going to be working with in leçon B. So, let's look at this a little bit closely. If I said je vais, that means I am going, right? But if you look at je suis means I am. So why doesn't je suis vais mean I am going? Because je suis vais means I am going. Because the am going is already in there. So do not make the mistake of doing that. I'll be honest, sometimes I catch myself doing that as well. And that is the reason that even to this day, I have been doing French for probably 20 ans by now, 20 years. No longer than that. And sometimes I still make little mistakes because it isn't my native language. Which is why when I do French, even to this day, I only write in pencil. I highly encourage you to only write in pencil. It looks much better if you have the ability to erase something than it does if you scratch it out, alright? So, just be aware, don't make that mistake. If you do, write in pencil so you can get rid of it really quickly. So, now let's say, where am I going, right? Well, I'm going to go to somewhere. And if you remember, you can't just say, I'm going to work. I would have to say, I'm going to the work. So everything in French has to have the in front of it, right? So, and the, le, la, and le, once again, is an adjective, so it has to match the noun in both number, singular or plural, and gender, masculine or feminine, of what you're talking about. So if I was saying the stadium, it's le stade, right? But if I wanted to say I'm going to the France, well, France is actually feminine, la, right? And if I wanted to say I'm going to America, I would actually have to say l'Amérique, because America begins with a vowel and it is singular. And so I would take off the L, the E or the A to make it work, right? In that case, it's the A. But if I was talking about États-Unis, because the United States is plural, I would have to say les, all right? Now, if I wanted to say I am going to these places, je vais, right? And I would say to the. Well, if you remember, to is ah with an accent grave. You have to have this accent grave there. Without it, it means has. Okay? This is a verb. This is a preposition. Huge difference. Don't mess those up, right? So, ah with an accent grave is to, at. And I'll show you this too. Watch. This is a little trick. That means has. Those aren't really even words. Each of these words has an extra little mark. So does this. It's got an accent grave. Alright? So don't forget that. Alright, so if I wanted to say to the stadium, then I would put that there. But if you recall, you can't have ah and le together. They morph into a new word. And that new word is oh. A-U. Oh. So if I were to say I'm going to the stadium, I couldn't say je vais à le stade. I would have to say je vais au stade. Okay? Now what about France? If I were to say I'm going to France, that one doesn't change. I could say je vais à la France. Perfectly fine. What if I want to say to the America? Because I can't say to America. I have to say to the America. And this is again why I'm forcing you to translate in French English. Because if in English I would translate je vais à l'Amérique as I am going to America. That's not right. The French English would say I am going to the America. And the more you get familiar with that, the easier it will be to not make mistakes in French. So à la and al do not change, right? What if I wouldn't say I am going to the United States? Je vais à les États-Unis? This one is another one of those, just like this, that morphs into a whole new word. Now, do you remember how to make anything that ends in EAU or AU plural? You add an X. So, je vais aux États-Unis. You're done. But you're going, wait, there's this thing that you kept doing, and it's like S before a V, singular before vowel, États-Unis starts with a vowel. Yeah, but it's not the United States. It's the United States. It's plural. This only works if you are dealing with singular before a vowel. For instance, if I wanted to say I'm going to Angleterre, England, there's only one England, and that would be à l'Angleterre. All right, so that's where the difference is going to come in. So that is a and le. But now let's say that I wanted to say this is the book, c'est le livre, okay, of the, and remember, apostrophe S does not exist in French. So I could not say this is the garçon, I can't even spell it, the garçons, c'est dire, livre. That does not work. Does not exist. Apostrophe S does not exist. Okay? So, I would actually have to say this is the book of the boy. Same concept, but different. And this is again why you have to translate into French English, right? So, the boy, garçon. All right? We'll come back to that. What if it was the book of the girl? What if it was the book of my friend? What if it was the book of my friends? What if it was the book of my parents? Okay? So, that's right. That wrong. Same word. It's cognate. Same word. So, c'est le livre. If I want to say of the, if you remember, the way to say of is de, de. Okay? And again, this is one of those little bitty words, so you may have to watch out. But de for this particular case means of. Alright? It can also mean from. De can mean of or from. So if I were to say, this is the book of the boy, it looks like I would write de le. But just like à le, this one morphs. And it becomes du. C'est le livre du garçon. It is the book of the boy. Now, of the girl, de la fille. Just like à la, this one is not going to change. C'est le livre de la fille. It's the girl's book. It is the book of the girl. What if it was my friend's book? C'est le livre de le ami? No. Because le, before a vowel, it's going to get that apostrophe. So, c'est le livre de l'ami. Okay? Now, what if I want to say it's the book of the friends? C'est le livre de les amis? Nope. This one's going to change. Des amis. Doesn't matter. This begins with a vowel because it's plural, not singular before a vowel. Okay? And then if I want to say this is the book of the parents, it's the same thing. C'est le livre des parents because parents is plural. Alright? So that's where you're going to come in with that. Now, these were all people. Alright? But if I were dealing with countries or places, it'd be a little bit different. If I wanted to say that John, which in French is Jean, okay? Not all names have a different French name. Some of them do. John happens to be one. So if I were to say John is from, and let's say John was from Canada. Let's say he was from France. Let's say he was from England, Angleterre, and let's say that he was from the United States. États-Unis. Now here, this one's going to be a little different because we're dealing with locations. So, and I'll tell you, the only one that really changes are these two. Okay? So, other than that, de plus le, de plus les, they stay the same. Okay? So, John is from, is. So, John est, because he is, Jean est. Alright? Du Canada, because it's technically from the Canada. But you can't use that, so it's du. France is feminine. We'll come back to this one. We'll come back to both of these. Alright? The United States is plural. It's the same thing, doesn't change. Jean est des États-Unis. Des États-Unis. But France, it looks like it should be de la, but it's not. It's just de. Because when you're dealing with locations, those rules are a little bit different. So if it is a feminine place that you're saying from, you just put de. And if it is a singular place before a vowel, not an object, but a place, it looks like it should be de l'apostrophe, but it's not. It's actually D apostrophe. So on those you take out the L. So basically there's no le or lay or la anywhere when you're dealing with locations. They're all, it just goes away. It either morphs into a new word, like du if it's masculine, or de, you leave out the la if it's feminine, de apostrophe if it's singular before a vowel, and de if it's plural. But again, this is only with locations, all right? Otherwise, it follows those rules we just went over. So, your conjugation of être, your conjugation of aller. Now, the other thing that you are seeing in here is you're seeing this word. Sometimes you're seeing se. Sometimes you're seeing set. Sometimes you're seeing set. And sometimes you're seeing say. All of these mean this or that, and then this means these or those, because this is plural, okay? So how do you know which one to use? Again, this is an adjective, so it has to match the noun in both number and gender. So if the noun is masculine, you use ce. So if I want to talk about this sweater, I would say ce pull, this sweater. If I were talking about something that was masculine, singular, before a vowel, for instance, anorak, and I wanted to say this